Good morning, my name is Dwayne. We're going to be conducting an install of the pre-runner outer bars from N-Fab. These are going to replace these outer bumper sections from the stock Ford 2017 Raptor. I've been looking over the instructions. These are going to be a little bit more detailed because we're going to be having to remove this light bezel. It's only one part. We're going to have to remove the grille. I've already installed the 40-inch radius pre-runner light bar, and of course I've got it wired up. I did that in the last segment, so I'm going to have to remove that. Removing that's going to be fairly easy. It was only a 4-bolt install, but after that everything else is going to be pretty much in accordance with the instructions that is provided by N-Fab. We're going to be needing a variety of different tools to do this. This might be a level 2, maybe level 3. Of course, how we're doing this on our channel is it's going to be a driveway install. We're not doing this in a professional shop or anything else like that. None of our installs are done at a professional shop. We're just Raptor enthusiasts, gearheads. So we're just going to use the tools that we have available to us, and we're going to go ahead and make this install. Next up, we're going to go ahead and show you what is actually included in the box. I've already installed one set of dualies on my pre-runner bars. Those are not included. So just keep that in mind when I show you what's actually in the box. Okay, so what is actually in the box? Of course, you have the pre-runner bars. Of course, you see that I have the rigid dualies already installed. I have yellow amber covers over them. These are DoD compliant. You also see that there's mesh panels. These mesh panels will go over the bars themselves, and they make a pretty clean look install. You have the option to run them with or without. I've got one panel turned upside down. They install merely with J hooks. As we get closer, you'll be able to see that these are actually Allen head cap screws, but they're flared, so they're more streamlined. The J hooks, they're pretty easy to install. They just mount right in there. You turn them, you loosen them up. I've tightened mine up. These mesh panels are not plastic, although they appear on the N-Fab website that they do look like they're plastic, but they are actually steel. So they're going to hold up quite well. You have the option of, you don't have to remove your light bar or your light to put these panels on. I believe that this will accept up to a 10-inch light bar or 3 separate cube bar or cube lights and whatnot. So this looks kind of empty with just the single light, but I'm doing this primarily just to get a feel for what a stock look like what F-150 would have. As you can see, I've already have several different bars. My 10-inch bar that would go underneath the N-Fab logo on the radius bar I had already removed because I knew I was going to have to remove these panels and things like that, so I didn't want to have to put them on. I didn't replace them after the last segment. So as you can see, what's included is the bars, and you also have a little packet of nuts and bolts and screws and various different sundry of items. So I'm not sure how long it's going to take. Probably maybe 2-3 hours to install this, maybe. I'll give you more definite as we go along. Again, we do these on the fly without any scripting whatsoever. We install them as we read the instructions, so we give step-by-steps. If we find a trick or a tip that makes the install go easier, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and do that, and let's go ahead and get to it, and we will complete the install. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove the lower grille like we've done before when we did the radius light bar. The instructions say all you have to do is just pull on it and it'll come out. You don't have to use any pry tools. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. I know it'll work because I've done it before. So just bear with me here. And that's all there is to pulling that off. Okay, next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to remove the radar box or the radar control for the adaptive cruise control, and then we're going to have to unplug the connection. So we'll go ahead and get that done. By the way, we're going to only work on one side because both sides are pretty much even, with the exception of the adaptive cruise control radar control. So hopefully this will go by pretty quick. Okay, we went ahead and removed the radar control module. Be careful because it's tight. It's in there with some plastic clips. Notice that these studs are actually adjustable. They do that so the adjustment for the radar control module can be adjusted for height, and as well as lateral adjustment if you start to experience some unexpected adaptive cruise control issues where it's either coming on too early or not coming on quick enough. So these are already adjusted. I don't recommend you touching these at all. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to move directly under and remove the 8mm bolts that you can reach through the outer bumper panel. And we're going to be removing these bolts right there. They're 8mm, one on each side. Next we're going to be removing the bumper nuts. There's one on each side. Of course, I've got my pre-runner bar hooked up, so we're going to have to remove these two bolts. There's two on each side. The instructions say that there's one that can be reached from the back side. I'm going to have to go in and find that. At one point, I'm going to have to completely remove the radius light bar. Since my wiring is pretty much tucked up underneath the radiator for my lights, there's going to be a point where I'm going to have to remove the radiator panel that's up the top, and when we get to that, we will be able to assess the wires a lot easier through removing that panel. Okay, when you remove the those two bolts that those two nuts that I was talking about, you'll be able to remove from the backside fairly easy the bracket that actually holds those two bumper nuts and bolts in place. Pretty simplistic design, looks pretty easy, shouldn't have any problem. Next we're going to remove the radiator panel. That's this piece that goes all the way across. There's 10 of these little push pins. They're really easy to come out. Use a little screwdriver. You pop the top off, and don't take it completely out because you tend to lose them and stuff like that. I also recommend, while you're doing this, you have some sort of box like I have to go ahead and put all your parts in. That way you got them all neatly stored in one place. You don't have stuff floating around. You don't have to search for them. You know exactly where it's at. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all 10 of these and remove the panel. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the 4 core support bolts that holds the grill on place. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. Eventually we're going to have to remove these wires right here. As you can see, this is where I've routed my wires for my light bar, and it covers these connectors that we're going to have to take off at some point. It's not a real big deal because once we get the panel off and when we remove the grill, we'll have full exposure and whatnot. So we'll be able to unplug the wires pretty easy. Shouldn't have any problems. These are pretty easy to move anyways. Next we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the push pin that holds the top of the headlight bezel, and then we're going to remove the bezel itself. We've got to do that on both sides. With the push pins removed, now we're going to try and gently remove the bezel. I might actually have to fully take off my light bar at this point. I'm trying to see exactly how far I can go before I actually have to remove the light bar. It will have to come off at some point, but I want to try to get the grill off first. If you don't have the radius light bar, you don't have to worry about that particular step. So let's give this a try. Okay, we got the headlight bezel removed fairly easy. It took a little bit of figuring out where the best place to remove it was. Where I found the best place to remove it was actually starting down low and pulling that bottom out, and that loosened it up, and it will go ahead and allow you to remove the bezel along where these clip holders are. And as you can see, where it actually goes in, try to get a better view of this, it's actually held on by plastic retainers, so it's not too bad. There's no clips on this side on the outer edge of the bezel itself. It's just held in by plastic retainers that are molded into the plastic here. The back side of the bezel, you can see it has those little metal clips. These are smaller than the ones that are actually on the grill, and I was not needing to remove the light bar itself, so the bezel came out fairly easy. Alright, so we got both bezels removed. I recommend that you put them off someplace where they won't get scratched up, because they are a painted surface and you don't want to mess those up. This is the part where we actually are going to have to move this clip and this clip. Since I've already got mine pre-wired, I'm going to have to do a little work. I'm going to have to cut the zippy ties in there to loosen those up, and then I'm going to have to unplug my light bars, so I'll be able to remove the radiator grill. Also, while you've got this out, you go ahead and pull this rubber guard off. Go ahead and do that on both sides, because you'll eventually have to do it when you get ready to remove the radiator anyway. They just pop out of place. All they are is just push pin type things. If you break one, you can get these at any automotive store. Pretty easy. Okay, now that we've got my light bar wiring harnesses out of the way, and we're ready to, I went ahead and disconnected the plugs in accordance with the instructions. We also have to remove this hose that connects to the grill. We're also going to have to remove these clips, push pin clips, and then remove the grill. So let's get after it. In order to remove those clips, I thought that would be a lot harder, but they're actually not. They're just a larger version of the push pin type clips. I went ahead and used a body trim panel remover and went up underneath them, and they come up pretty easy, no problem. I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was. Like I said, we're doing this on the fly for the first time, and it seems to be going pretty smooth. Instructions are pretty fluid, not a problem. I went ahead and removed the push pins all the way around the grill and pushed it inside. There's 6 of them pretty much. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove that lower bolt that holds the radiator on, and see if the radiator comes loose. I think there might be a couple of top bolts that I'm not sure that may have been installed after N-Fab had released their instructions. Okay, I got the lower grill bolts taken out. It's pretty loose. There was no upper bolts to hold it in place. However, you must undo these harness clips and pull the harness that holds the 2 electrical connectors and the rubber hose. Little note, the rubber hose has a disconnect, like quick disconnect, where you actually slide this over and pull it loose. Don't be yanking on it or anything else like that. It is plastic. Don't want you to go and break that, so be cautious of that. it snaps into place. But just slide that back a little bit and it will loosen up. As you can see on the inside, it locks into place in that little recess that's on the plastic tube for itself. Here's a little tip alert. I use zippy ties because a lot of the times the factory harnesses and stuff like that, they're bent into place and they want to keep falling into where you're working. I use a zip tie and just kind of throw everything back and zippy tie it out of the way. That way I've got a fairly clean and easy access to where the location is that I'm working at. Okay, look at that. The grill had come out very easily. I've still yet to remove my outer bar, even though my radius light bar, even though I'm going to have to. Now I've got wide open space to do the rest of the install. I'm going to move the grill out of the way, so I'll even have a better chance to run my wires, maybe clean out some of the bugs that's on the radiator and whatnot while I'm in there. So now that we've got the grill removed, we have this piece right here, rubber panel. In the instructions, if you look hard enough in the instructions, you'll see that they actually have this panel pulled up and held into place out of the way, because you're going to need to access these bolts that are holding the bumper on. So might as well go ahead and take care of that now. It doesn't say to specifically in the instructions, at least not where I can see it. Just says to remove the plastic clip set attached to the rubber shroud to the grill. And this was actually these things that is pointed out in the instructions. Okay, what I've done is I've basically done what N-Fab did. Is I took a couple of zippy ties and pulled that rubber shroud up, and I folded it inward and got all the rubber shroud out of the way so I can go ahead and have access to these intercooler bolts that you're going to have to remove. We're going to remove these intercooler bolts on both sides, and then we're going to have to pop these rivets loose, and then we're going to take this completely off. This is not going to be used anymore. The outer bar brace will bolt directly on top of that and hold the intercooler in place, and we won't need to have to worry about that anymore. This is going to be completely gone. We won't need those supports anymore, because those supports right there, we took the bolts off. Those were 8mm. They actually hold and support the outer bumper panel, so those are going to be gone once we get the bars gone. So we'll go ahead and get that done, and we'll proceed to the next step. The next step is going to entail where I actually remove my radius light bar, because I've got to remove the two bolts that are holding it on, plus the additional bolt that's holding the bumper on. Once you remove the bolts that hold the intercooler support on the truck, you could actually remove it, and the instructions show to take and use some kind of pry bar to pop those pop rivets off. I'm going to go ahead and just use a drill and drill those out, since we're not going to be using those holes anymore. It'll be a lot easier than trying to fight and wrestle and hold and potentially bend this up. I'm just going to drill those out. Yes, I was pretty much right. About 30 seconds with a drill, and those pop rivets just came right off. No problems. Easy, quick, didn't have to wrestle with trying to hold on. I'm pretty confident that the pop rivets would have popped off with a good screwdriver or a small pry bar, but like I said, I just wanted to do it quick and easy, because that metal is sharp, so you need to be careful with that. Now, as I said before, we're gonna have to remove these two bolts. If you have the radius bar, you'll have to remove the bolts that came with it. If not, you'll be removing the factory bolt that has the slip nut behind it. Those two bolts will come off on both sides. and we'll see where we're at from there and go from the instructions. And I think we're pretty close to completing this install with getting the bumper off. Okay, looking underneath the truck, this is the backside bumper retaining nut, and that's the one that at the beginning of the video that I was telling you that we'll have to remove to get the bumper taken off. So there's one on each side, and we'll go ahead and work on getting that off now. And just like that, the bumper is off, and this is pretty much, you have full access to the front end. That wasn't very long. Now we've got to take the outer bumper panels off and get ready for the reinstall. We're going to follow the instructions because we're going to have to remove some of the panels that are on the inside, some of the brackets, in order to install the outer bars. Now, as the instructions say, we're going to have to remove these brackets, and there's 5 bolts that we're going to have to remove in order to get these outer bumper panels off. So we're going to go ahead and take those off and get the bumper panels off and go from the next set, which will be to start the install of the actual N-Fab bumper bars themselves. Okay, there is the panels removed, those bumper brackets, and this is the center section of the bumper. Went ahead and slid the outer bumper panels off. Now we're getting ready to do the reinstall. Again, that was fairly simple. I only needed a 13mm socket wrench, I believe. Okay, we're getting ready to mount these panels back on, and as you can see, the instructions say to reattach the backing plate with the factory bolts and clips. But if you notice, one of the holes doesn't actually have a clip. I just spoke with Scooter at N-Fab, and he says you can go ahead and use one of the bolts that's included in the kit, or you can just snap the clip that's on the outer panel and use the factory bolt, whatever works best. So whichever one you want to do is totally fine. That clears up that. So when you get to installing that backing plate for your reinstall of this project. So as you can see, I opted to go with the original factory slip nuts and bolts. I've got those tightened into place. So now we're ready to begin the reinstall of the center section and get those outer bars done. Well, now the center section has been placed back on. In the instructions it says to remove the side panels at this point, but I went ahead and removed them prior to that, so now I've just got the center section sitting there. The next step is going to reinstall the adaptive cruise control module where it belongs, and we'll continue on, and we'll be done here pretty shortly. I also went ahead and took the opportunity to set my lights wiring harness for the lighting that I'm going to have in the outer bars at this point. That way I don't have to try to do fishing around through the grille after it's already mounted. Well, in following the instructions, it said to mount the center section and keep the mounting hardware loose, and then it said to plug in the radar for the ACC, or yeah, the adaptive cruise control, and mount it back into place. If you do that, you won't be able to reach this bolt to tighten it up. It will not, the adaptive cruise control will have to be taken back off, and then you'll have to tighten that bolt back up. The other thing that I noticed is that in the hardware packet that was provided, there was not a bolt that would fit the center of the side panel that the brackets or the outer bars are supposed to fit. So I drilled those out. I didn't want to take the time to call N-Fab and say, hey, I didn't get those smaller size bolts. I just went ahead and drilled them out and used the same size bolts that were provided in the packet. So the tech tip here is, don't install the adaptive cruise control module until you have everything fitted in place and until you're ready to put the panel back in place. Then you put the adaptive cruise control back in and plug it back in. Otherwise you will not be able to tighten up this bolt. Okay, we've installed the bumper ends. They're all left loose. Aligned the center section. Drilled the holes that needed to be drilled. Everything's loose. Now we're getting ready to just go ahead and button it up, tighten it up, and put everything back together in the reverse order. All right, here's the completed outer pre-runner outer bar installation. As you can see, I've got the removable mesh panel on one side, and we'll walk over. This is an option. You can also have it run all the way through with no mesh panel at all, so you can protect your lights if you run with the mesh panel and whatnot. They just attach with button head Allen screws with J hooks on the back. This is what the panel on the back side looks like with the J hooks. All you do is you just put the panel on and turn the J hooks where they're onto the bar itself, and then just tighten down with an Allen wrench, and you'll be all set. So for this install, I think it looks pretty clean with the 40-inch pre-runner light bar. Next time what we'll do is, I do have the RKR rock sliders with detachable steps from N-Fab. We will install those in our next segment. So from the center of the USA, this is Dwayne, and keep on rapting. Okay, this is the 2017 Raptor. As you can see, I've got both mesh covers. I like the way it looks with the rigid lights. I've got the dualies, D2s, and the E-Series combo spot and flood. I like the way this makes the truck look. It gives it a real aggressive look. N-Fab does a great job for metalwork and tube work for the 2017 Raptor. I got the RKR rock sliders with detachable steps, which will be getting installed later on, probably tomorrow, but today it's too hot and I am done for the day.